Tonight, we welcome back Charles Rosenay to talk about paranormal conventions, his new book about Connecticut ghost stories, and Beatles conspiracy theories. Deep beneath the stacks of the New York Public Library, it's Brian and Eric don't belong here. Stay with us. Hey everybody, just Brian up top here. This is a bonus show coming out right before Paraconn 2022 in Ansonia, Connecticut. Charles Rosenay, one of our favorite guests of all time, is going to be debuting his new book, True Ghost Stories of Connecticut. And our show is also going to be there. We're going to be at a table, and we're also doing a live show Sunday at 1:15 p.m., and we're very excited about it. If you're in the Connecticut area, we hope you can make it out. But I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Let's get into it. All right, everybody. It's Brian and Eric here again with a man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to give one anyway. It's a Cryptmaster Chucky, was it? The showman half of the shaman and the showman. Basically, I think one of our favorite guests of all time, Charles Rosenay.
Wow. The best part of that was your favorite guest of all time, and you better not say that to anybody else.
I never have. Never have. That is where we'll get the belt made.
Yeah. Don't listen to any of other interviews, though. We're taking them back. They're not there anymore.
Charles, how are you? Thank you so much for coming back.
Great. I'm a little crazed, a little chaotic, a little nuts because we have the event coming up on July 16th and 17th, but really excited and happy and energized.
I've heard frequent convention goers refer to Con Crunch. Is that an accurate?
Con Crunch works. Yeah. Con Kill is another word. Another.
Is that how you get relieve some of the stress? Just murder.
Yeah. What was that Robert Durst documentary? Can we get that now? That would really help our numbers, actually, if you would admit to a murder.
Just stay on the line for another 5 minutes. Should be fine.
Charles, you've been on the show before, but real fast, for anyone joining us for the first time, can you give us a quick, what's your deal, man?
My deal is endless fun projects that entertain me and others. Fortunately, I've really lucked upon presenting a lot of things and doing a lot of projects that people enjoy, whether it's my Dracula tours to Transylvania or my Beatles tours to Liverpool, all the stuff in the pop culture field. Been doing conventions and festivals forever, and just started adding, to my resume books. As you know, in our last chat, we talked about the book of top 10 horror lists.
Of course.
Where 100 celebrities gave me their top 10 favorite horror themes. Book phenomenal. It's selling well and doing great with reviews on Amazon. And
I saw that. Lots of 5 stars.
Yeah. And at this convention that's coming up, which I hope we're going to focus on, I am doing the book launch of True Ghost Stories of Connecticut, which is really special because I got all these amazing paranormal investigators and specialists and mediums and psychics and clairvoyants to write their, not necessarily favorite, but their most exciting, scary, revelationary psychic encounter, their haunted event. And we compiled it. There's like 30 chapters, and I've done a bunch of them in the book, and people are going to just freak out. I'm just so proud of it and so psyched. And the fact that we're going to be launching it at the Paraconn, it's just the perfect tie-in because a lot of people who are at the event contributed to the event. So somebody can walk around from table to table and probably get half the people to autograph. Here's a story on the Curtis House in Connecticut, written by this gal who's an author and will be at the convention, Leanna. And she'll be there. So if someone gets the book signed, they can get it signed by the people inside, including the amazing
man
Kreskin
himself.
That's correct. I've heard a lot about this Kreskin guy. And some people are asserting that he's just kind of average. Would you say that's true?
So there's a lot of haters,
Yeah.
and Penn Jillette is one of the ones who really destroys him. But when somebody kind of is the OG of mentalists, the granddaddy, the godfather of mentalism. There's that respect factor. He wasn't on Johnny Carson all those times, because he wasn't at least entertaining. So, does he do tricks? Yes. Does he really read minds? I would leave that up to you to decide.
Who are we to say?
Who are we to say? Thank you. But the fact that he's 105 years old and he's coming to the event.
He's 105?
No. He's about, I don't know what. What would you say? 80.
That's Alan Greenspan on the cover. It's not even...
Well, it's him. The special guests are him and Johnny Zaffis. John Zaffis is the nephew of the Warrens.
Wow.
I mean, that's like Warren blood. And he was the star of the show Paranormal. What was he? Paranormal Collector, the Haunted Collector, something like that.
Okay.
I think he's calling us now.
That is the rumor. If you say his name three times, he'll call you on the phone.
That's funny. So besides the two of them, there's about 20 guests, including yourselves.
Including us.
And 80 vendors, which is just, ridiculous. We've got so many. It's horror merch. It's tarot card readers. It's clairvoyance. It's people selling shirts. And it's the ultimate. And it's July 16th and 17th in Connecticut at the Ansonia Armory. But it's worth a trip from anywhere. The hours are 11 to 5 or 6 each day. And we're just going to have, we're going to have fear and fun and phantasms all together.
So now it's an all ages event, right?
Oh, well, yeah, it is. But you got to be accompanied by adult. We don't want a bunch of 12-year-olds running around.
But you can bring your family. You can and should bring your family.
Oh yeah. It's definitely a family fun event. We even have food trucks outside, and food trucks equates with family fun.
Of course. That's mandatory.
Families love to eat from a truck. They don't like to go indoors.
I do want to circle back to your book for a minute. True Ghost Stories of Connecticut. How did you? A lot of the people who have contributed to the book are going to be at the event in July. How did you come across all of these people, and how did you reach out about contributing?
So originally, I was going to do the book myself and do all of the stories that I know. There's the Pink Lady of New Haven, who I saw, when I was in college. True story. There's one that happened in one home that I lived with that my wife didn't allow me to put in the book.
Why? Too spicy? Erratic?
No, not so much spicy, but she's superstitious. If I tell a story of what happened, that it might return.
Can you tell right now?
Yeah, can you tell it on a podcast? I think we've blessed the podcast. It's actually immune.
Yeah.
No. And
fair point. Yeah, all right.
No, you know what? Eventually I'll talk her into it, and it'll probably be in volume 2 or volume 3.
You got to save the good stuff. Yeah.
What I did, guys, is as I was sending out vendor information for this year's Paraconn, I looked down, the 60 people who came last year, and I thought, wait a second. They're either clairvoyants or psychics or paranormal investigators. They must have that one unbelievable story that they can share. And sure enough, just about every one of them not only did, but loved the idea of contributing to the book. So, I guess in a way it's a cheating book because it's a collection. I got everyone to do a lot of the work. But when it's said and done, it's me editing everything. It's doing the layout. It's adding everyone's photos. It's adding everyone's bios. And the whole beginning is pretty much my introduction to how I became involved with paranormal, how I hooked up with Nick Grossman, who's going to be on your show, and how we became para partners as the shaman and the showman. And so, that's been a very, very special journey. He's one of my best friends. And whereas, he believes and he can walk into a room, and I'm sure he'll tell you this, and, he'll walk in and say, oh my God, someone Is it a dog? He'll know who died in that room and how and what. He's that
Wow.
he's that much of a conduit to this kind of stuff. And when we go on our haunted ghost tours, which we do together and bring people, I mean, the things that come out of walls, the things that happen are just unbelievable. And I'm the non-believer of the group. I'm the one who poo-poos it, because you want someone who's at least a little rational, who's presenting the other side. Well, it can't, there's got to be a scientific reason. But if there's a scientific reason, and we went to a place called Dudleytown, which is a famous scare place in Connecticut. And then there's this one guy who doesn't believe in it at all. And all of a sudden we're looking at him and we're all pointing to him. We're starting to take pictures because he's standing there, and you probably can't see it in this photo, but all of a sudden his hair starts to stand up.
Yeah, wow. Charles is showing us a picture from the
no
book right
reason.
now, and yep, there you can see it. You can see it in the picture.
It looks like someone's rubbing an invisible spiritual balloon on his head.
It's actually, if you get a closer look at the shot, it looks like there's an invisible hand that took that chunk of hair and just pulling it straight up. So I'm the guy who says, oh, there must be a magnetic force right in this, tiny patch of grass in this. And of course it doesn't, there's no logic to it. There's no reason. These are why there's unexplained phenomena. But what's great is that, we capture that, a lot of that. And I was able to put a lot of that in the book. So if somebody loves ghost stories in general, if someone's from Connecticut, wow, it's even more of a plus because they probably heard of some of these places. But like I said, I wrote the intro, a long introduction of how I got involved in the paranormal. Kreskin gave me an amazing forward. In the horror book I did, he gave me a chapter prior.
Wow.
So he even says, when you're finished with this book, go get the book of top 10. So he was nice enough to give me a plug within a plug in the same book. And then it's everyone's chapters, and it's just so amazing. And then I do a final, wrap up. And I think, I've been so tempted to get it out there. And it's actually on Amazon, but I haven't announced that it's on Amazon.
Wow.
So please don't announce that.
Of course.
But
Sure.
Of course.
Because we'll keep that a secret.
we want to debut it at the convention, and then I'll go crazy posting it everywhere.
Amazing. I had a question about, so you've, last time we talked about like your Dracula tours, the ghost tours you've hosted. So you are a man of world renown, been all over the place. Do you think there's something specific about Connecticut and like the ghost stories of Connecticut that are, that stand out in any way?
Well, Nick will, further elaborate on that, but Connecticut, it's easy to say, because it's your own home state. Someone from, Virginia is going to say theirs is, and that's one of the most haunted states. Pennsylvania, right. There's some states that jump out, Georgia. But yes, Connecticut is by far one of the most haunted states. Between its original Confederacy, so many people died in battle. It leads itself to all that. It's one of the 2 or 3 states where there were witches and witch trials and hangings and killings and all that. So my gosh, yeah, it's definitely so. Specifically an area called the Valley,
yes.
which Nick says, it's where 2 rivers actually hit each other and collide, and it causes he says there's some kind of reciprocal thing that happens, and he feels that there's incredibly haunted locations in Connecticut, but specifically in the Valley, which is where Ansonia is. And which is where our armory is,
right.
where we're having Paraconn.
I dated a girl for a while whose mom didn't like me because I was from the Valley.
From which valley?
I wasn't even, like, Wallingford isn't even necessarily the Valley, but it got, for Fairfield folk, it got lumped in.
A little low. The terrain's a little low. The elevation.
So if you say there's people who say they're, from the Valley, and I'm thinking automatically, the movie Valley Girl, and they say they're from Ansonia. I go, here's from now on, you just say you're from L.A. And so, what? Huh? I go, Lower Ansonia, and it adds a lot more credibility to it.
I lived in Seymour for a while though.
Seymour is definitely the Valley.
Yeah, and you know what? Seymour's got a little spooky vibe. I can concur. It's a spooky place.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Charles, you mentioned before that you had an encounter with a pink lady.
And obviously people have to buy the book. Can you give us a little teaser into... 'cause
Yeah,
I've
what
never
is
heard
that?
of this. I've never heard of a
who's the
pink lady.
When I was single, there were a lot of encounters with different pink ladies, but the one that's paranormal and that has to do with this, I don't mind telling the story because I was in college and I had a friend, Ed DiPiazza, who's now in California. He's kind of my best friend in college. And he said, hey, you want to take a ride and see the pink lady? Thinking, all right, sure. And he goes, all right, when do you want to do it? I go, whenever. And we go to a few concerts, a few clubs. And one night, after imbibing and having a great time at a local club, he says, hey, remember I told you about Pink Lady? Why don't we go tonight? I go, well, do we have to call in advance? Do we have to make a reservation? I didn't know what it was. And he said, no, we're going to go. We're going to go. And he takes me in the car and he parks under this really, really spooky bridge in New Haven in a really seedy part of town that I wasn't familiar with. And I'm thinking, come on, my best friend's going to hit on me. What is going on here? I'm like, this could be any possible. He tells me the story of this gal who was very happy and very in love. And she bought a new home with her husband or her husband to be. I don't remember exactly. I can refresh my memory by looking in the book. And that right when he was sent off to war, right? He was called away to serve. And she goes, it's okay. Everything's going to be fine. You'll be home. We'll pick up where we left off. We'll have the greatest life. And she said, you know what? You come around the corner because after the bridge, there's a long street and then it bends real quick. And then when you bend, you're at the house where she was. He goes, when you come to that corner, all I want you to do is put on your high beams. And when I see those high beams, I will come to the door. I will come in my sexiest pink negligee. I will be waiting for you. Well, a year goes by, 2 years go by, time goes by, and she doesn't hear anything. And she's not giving up. But apparently she's always going out on the, banister on her balcony or through the window to look. And every time a car would put on its brights, well,
ready to go
to the window. Well, as it turns out, he was killed in service. And he never came home. And apparently she either killed herself, passed away of natural causes, whatever, but they never touched that top floor of the house that she owned. And so he tells me this whole story, and we're driving slowly. And I go, if this is a waste of time, I'm thinking that he's putting me on, and we make the turn. And he puts on his brights, and guys, my hand to God, this ghostly spectral figure with a white face, no eyes, black
wow,
pink, comes like she's levitated to the front. She's like, makes a face like this and then disappears.
Get out of here.
No.
The truth, guys, because we went around the block and I said, can we do that again?
We need repeatable results.
Yeah.
He goes, let's wait. I go, no, I want it now, right now. Because if this is a fake, I don't want them to reset. I want to see this. We did it again. The same thing happened. I come home. I tell everyone. I tell everyone I know. No one believes me. No one wants to take the ride with me except my parents. So we go, and I try to remember the story to verbatim and I tell them, and I have a friend in the back, and we make the turn. I go, I'm going to put on my brights now, and I put on my brights, and this figure comes out again, guys.
Oh my God!
And it's like, what? You couldn't believe it. So I went during the day to see if there's any houses across that could be doing some, I don't know, high-end, a screen of some kind of a projection, projecting this. And there is nothing but really rubble across the street. There is no homes. There's no way this could be a setup. I bring a bunch of my friends, and we do it again. And not only did it happen again, but we threw one of my friends out the door, and we left.
You guys are mean. That's a real jerk move.
As we drive off, we see him running after us. He had loose pants. His pants fall down. Wow. He's chugging with his pants down. Wait for me, guys. The funniest scene. But sure enough, I'd forgotten about that until I brought I wanted to bring a girl or two there. So we did that. And it always, always, always happened. It wasn't necessarily the same slowness or fastness, which would lead me to believe that it wasn't, a repeated, effect.
Right.
And then I forgot about it, after I graduated college until pretty much years later. I went there and the house was demolished, just like all the houses across the street, the, urban renewal or whatever it was they were going to do there. And so I just hope, wherever her spirit is, it went on and reunited with, her lover. Now, to take the story further, but I don't have proof, and this is true ghost stories of Connecticut. So I did include it, but someone's dad said, "Oh my gosh, of course, that was World War I." And it was a motorbike or a bike, and the brights of the bike were what attracted her. And I'm like, wow, that even adds another texture to this amazing story. And guys, I've gone on to ask people on New Haven Facebook boards and all that if they know the Pink Lady, and so few people have heard of it.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
So you've essentially observed a repeated paranormal phenomenon like a bunch of times. Like how many times? Like 10 times?
Well, probably 5 or 6. Yeah.
Wow.
How do you explain it? What is it? Just in your mind? This is just a ghost?
Especially how do you deal with it as a skeptic, as a still claimed skeptic of like, that's pretty weird, man.
That's a great question. I can't answer that because I still, you know what? I say if there's ghosts and they're they want to be found, they will be found. I don't want to be the one who finds them. So in a car at a distance, I was okay with that. And for me, everything, why we the shaman and the showman, for me, everything is entertainment.
Sure.
And I loved bringing people there and having them have this same mind-blowing experience that I did. But I never, thought at the time, oh, wow, I must have to believe in ghosts because I'm seeing an apparition right now. So that's a great question. And I don't know how I live with the fact that even though I don't believe in ghosts per se, these things are, they're happening all the time. And as life goes on, they're happening more and more to more and more people who either have hidden that ability for many years and are cultivating it, or just are discovering it, later in life. Someone who wrote the story in the book, and this one is mind-blowing. It's a hospital story. Her name is Kathy. She's from New Jersey, but she worked in a Bridgeport hospital. And I'm going to sum it up, and it's worth reading because she's much more. She tells it so much more loquaciously than I do. But the fact is that her dad passed away under her care at the hospital, and he resembled a famous actor. And when she went back to work after grieving for a week, and there was a new patient in her ward, the patient asked about the person who came to visit her in that room. And I think you know where this is going, but she said, "No, there shouldn't be anyone visiting you, especially at that hour. What did he look like?" And she says, "The actor." And she said, "But he had trouble walking." And this was her dad who came to visit to see how this patient was. So, how do you, it's wow, right?
Wow.
Yeah,
Definitely. Wow.
How do you, so Charles, look, you're taking the time, you're collating all these stories, you're doing this incredible research. Has putting this book together sort of changed your life in any way?
You know what? I might have to admit that I believe. There's a famous person called Richard Felix. He was in Britain. He was on British's TV, Most Haunted. And he would say he didn't believe in any of it, that it's energy, it's reciprocal energy that lives in walls somehow. And I say, well, if that's an energy, isn't that a ghost? Isn't that a spirit? And he wrote a book called What is a Ghost? And in it, he tries to debunk it, but everything he's saying proves it. So I think I'm sort of in those crossroads of, wanting to be the realistic guy who scoffs at it, but yet I've had all these experiences and all this proof that it exists, that it's very hard to dismiss.
How did you kind of, you've obviously said, how many contributors are there? Like 30, you said?
Yeah.
How did you meet all these people? How did you encounter all these clairvoyants and ghost hunters and all that?
Most of them were people being a paranormal investigator myself with Nick Roseman, most of them I'd either met in the field or they came to last year's Paraconn. And some of them set up as vendors, others visited. But once that happens, it's a community and people are in touch. And if there's a new place to investigate, people share it. There's what's called the Demon House of Derby. And a friend of ours went there, and his hands were ripped. There was claws that just ripped his arm while he was there with nobody around for no reason. And he's in the book too. So we went to the same place to investigate it, because that's how it works. We brought a group of people with us, because I'm the entertainer and I'm the showman and I'm the entrepreneur, and I'm also P.T. Barnum. So not only do I do these trips, I bring people along and charge them to come.
Sure.
I don't just investigate. If I'm going to go investigate, I don't want to find something. I want to bring others who will.
That doesn't mess up the investigation.
No.
No. How could? Yeah, of course not.
No.
Okay.
So having said that, we went to the same Derby Demon House, and I didn't go in. I was actually reluctant to go in. I left all the people.
Why? Because you were afraid, or?
I don't want to say I'm afraid, but I was afraid. Yeah. Yes.
We got it. We got him. He's a coward.
Yeah.
Shut it down. We got what we wanted.
Yeah. Do I sleep with a nightlight? Maybe. Would I go into that demon house? Absolutely. I could say that hypothetically.
Nightlight. I got the disco lights on. I've
gotta keep it light, baby.
Laser beams.
I will also throw out there on the video chat currently behind Charles is a full Hannibal Lecter cutout with the mask on and a Frankenstein.
Yep.
A nightlight might make that even spookier.
For sure.
Well, I will tell you that we went back there. I didn't go inside, but they were trying to say, if there's certain things that people do. If you're here, please talk to us. We have spirit boxes. We have voice. We have all this really cool gear, and there was a lot of static, which is common. So that always causes me to not be the biggest believer. But then from nowhere, a metal ball was thrown at Nick.
Oh my God.
And it was just from nowhere, from a blank door or whatever. So, these things happen. I hope he'll tell you more about that, because it's so wow. But I hope I answered your question.
How did you and Nick meet up? How did you guys link up in the first place?
Well, so I was the founder and owner and actor and host of a haunted attraction in Stratford, Connecticut called Fright Haven. And I had that in West Haven for some years, then moved it to Stratford. And I was the guy who greeted every single person through the door. Where you're from, all right, this, that, give them a little shtick and then let them in, set them up for, sense of false security. And Nick is one of these people who comes up with his kid to walk into the haunted house. And he says to me, hey, Charles, this place is haunted. I go, thank you. Yes, I did my job. I have done everything I can to, make it a haunted attraction. He goes, no, really, it's haunted. And I'm like, ooh, one of these. I go, all right, brother. So you know what? Combine that with all the animatronics and the scares I did, and have a good time. And I usher him in. I roll my eyes, and I bring in the next people. Well, he comes when it's all done, and he goes, I got to talk to you. Because as I was going through, and I came out, I got stronger feelings. I go, talk to me. And he tells me his history, how for 20 years he slept with a blanket over his head because he had visitations at night and he was scared of it. And he went to psychiatrists because he didn't know how to explain it. I want him to tell it to you because he tells it much better. But long story short, I said, what do you propose? He goes, let's do a paranormal investigation in here. I go, okay. Let's do it after hours. Let's do it so I can charge admission. Let's find a way to monetize it. He goes, well, we can do a scrying session. And now I've never heard of that, but I like the word. And I go, what is a scrying session? He goes, well, you put about 20 people in front of a large mirror. I kind of put them in what's kind of a paranormal trance. And then they see the most unbelievable things. And I'm like, if it sells a ticket, fine. So instead, it hits me upstairs. This used to be, before Fright Haven was a haunted attraction, it was a movie theater and it was a Bally's gym. And upstairs in the area we never touched or used was a mirrored room, complete
Okay.
every side, all mirrors, because that's what they have in gyms. And I said, well, can we do it here and have 50 people come? thinking I'll have a dozen people. He goes, yeah, but you better charge at least $25. I go, well, let's do $50.
Sure.
Guys, it's sold out. It's
Hell
sold
yeah.
out. And it was mostly people who go to Fright Haven who went there and were scared and wanted to get another experience. I'm sorry, I thought it would be mostly that, but it was people who've never been to Fright Haven.
Wow.
Who heard about this. So sure enough, he lights candles everywhere in the room. I'm like, thank God there was no fire marshal. He puts people by the mirrors. I do an introduction. I tell people how I don't believe any of this. I think it's hokey, but we're here to have fun, and maybe you'll have an experience just to set it up in case they don't. I don't want them coming out and say,
Right.
"Hey, you, this is your place." So I've sort of, psychologically, put that I don't expect there to be anything. Well, he does. He does a presentation and shows his rare artifacts. He has a lot of haunted artifacts. He's got dolls. He's got Dybbuk bottles where spirits are trapped in, evil spirits. So that was part one. Then part two, he turns a camera over the audience. And guys, the most crazy stuff happens. You see orbs floating and stomping on people. You see things flying. You really do see stuff on these cameras. It's like an infrared camera. I write it up as dust. But the dust particles don't always travel like a stream of upwards rain, which is what we were seeing in different cases. So that's part two. Then we take an intermission because I want to sell some concessions, and then we bring them back.
This guy's always thinking with his noodle.
Yeah, that's right.
And we bring them back, and I welcome everyone back. I go, now we're going to get ready for the scrying session. People, free your minds. And we bring back Nick Grossman of Ghost Storm, Ghost Lab, whatever we called it at the time. We weren't yet the shaman and the showman. And he does this thing that is just, it's so cool because he's got the ambient music. He's turned out all the lights except for red lights and the candles. And there was one guy who came, he's a friend of mine. He runs escape houses in the area. And he goes, God, I can't believe I'm wasting my time here. But my family wanted to go. My wife loves this stuff. He goes, just get me out of here as quick as you can. Anyway, long story short, he had the first of the great experiences there. He came out, his face was white. He said he was sitting there and everyone around him disappeared out of the mirror and all he saw was himself.
Oh my God.
Someone else said, oh my God, I had the opposite. Everybody else was in the mirror, but I disappeared. And then a friend of mine who's not crazy, who I know very well.
Important qualifier.
Right.
Yeah, she's a friend of my wife's. And, when somebody doesn't have that as part of their trait, you kind of have more validity. She comes out and she's shaking. And she says, I said, what? She goes, relatives who passed away visited me in that mirror.
Whoa.
Weird.
I was just like, wow. We've hit on something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
just the full cartoon cash register head.
Yeah. I feel like you literally are the ghost version of the guy in Jurassic Park. This is just a
right.
Charles, you cannot open a ghost park.
Yeah, don't do it. It's against the laws of nature, Charles.
Ghost park.
Oh no, we gave him the idea.
We did it. Brian, this is
paranormal Parapark.
If you're just listening to this, Charles is scribbling like a literal mad scientist.
Well, the next day I call Nick and I go, dude, I got some money for you. I gave him 50%. He was blown away at the amount of money. He goes, we got to do this more often.
Yeah.
And he goes, but the place is haunted. I go, I trust you. He goes, check with the city ordinance, check town hall. Guys, would you believe I went to town hall and according to as far back as the records go, the whole strip mall, not just Fright Haven, that whole area was built over Indian burial ground.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
Called it.
Wow.
Crazy.
Do you think
from that point on, Nick was not only, a bit of a cash cow with these but he's the real deal. He really does sense this stuff. If there's a fear, like someone has walked away at one of our paranormal events and they said they feel something on their shoulders, like a pressure. And that's scary because that means someone would have attached to them and possibly gone home. And he does cleansing right on the spot. And he said, when you get home, I want you to run water from every faucet. I want you to put salt at the doors of every, and he really explained what to do. And the gal, we followed up and she said, no, I had no issues as soon as I left. Everything was fine. So he has that power too of possibly healing, the entities that attach, which is what I don't want to happen, which is why I don't go to those events. I have too many promotions to do. I can't be dealing with an albatross.
Yeah, you can't. If they're not going to pay, at least.
An albatross from the other side who's not
a free rider.
No, you don't get to haunt Charles Rosenay for free.
That's right.
Crib Master Chucky don't do shit for free.
I don't want that Confederate cash. Come on. Guys, I never in my life had that full-time job. I've never had, a set income. So I've always had to find ways to do creative promotions. And, the books in the 80s and 90s, I published a Beatles magazine called Good Day Sunshine. Did it for nearly 20 years till the internet took over. And in all those years, the magazine continually lost money. The books don't make money.
We wouldn't know anything about that.
No, some of these events make money, but certainly not a living. I DJ at weddings and bar mitzvahs and parties. That's my main gig. That's how I support myself. We have a family of 5. That's how I take care of everyone by, hustling and entertaining and doing gigs. But all these other things sort of, have fun. I have fun with, and they fill a need for creativity.
Definitely. I did want to circle back to the book for a second. Now, you've literally written the book on true ghost stories in Connecticut. Yeah. And whenever you search haunted places in Connecticut, because we're like close by, and I'm always thinking of like, where can we do road stuff? Yeah. Are there any like low-key, off the radar spots that you would recommend to hypothetical podcast idiots?
Are you asking Loki as in the Marvel universe?
That's exactly, yes. Yeah, where is Tom Hiddleston hiding in Connecticut? Yeah. No, low-key haunted spots that you would maybe recommend checking out, especially like people are coming into Connecticut for Paraconn. They might want a fun, spooky place to go check out after the show.
Well, Nick and I are the shaman and the showman, and Nick could really answer you much better because he's been to so many more places than I have. And the few places that I have, some are off limits, and
sure.
we shouldn't have gone, and we did. Others, we did, and it's because we got special permission, whatever. But he can, ramble off a laundry list of scary places that he would definitely recommend in and around Connecticut. I mean, I don't know if we're supposed to say it, but we've got a planned visit to the Conjuring House in Rhode Island coming up.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
So that's really exciting. And there's a place in Connecticut called Downs Road, which is actually called Dracula Drive.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. It might even be Wallingford or North Haven.
I believe North Haven, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And then there's, Fairfield Hills Asylum. There's this aforementioned Dudleytown. But ask Nick. That's a great question to ask him because he'll be able to ramble on which places and the experience he's had at those.
Great. We will definitely do that. You mentioned that you did a Beatles magazine for a long time. You've also you've organized a lot of Beatles conventions. I was hoping you'd be willing to play a quick game with us. Eric, you have to play too.
Love it.
Okay. So I've done a little research on some of the most popular creepy Beatles conspiracy theories. I'm hoping that I would like to present the conspiracy theories that I have found. Eric, I want you to guess what you think Charles will rate the likelihood. 1 being, that's not possible. That's absolutely not the truth. 10 is, I absolutely believe that is the case.
So I'm guessing what Charles.
Yes. Okay. You ready for round number 1?
Round number 1.
Round number 1 is, of course, the very famous one. Everyone knows this one. But Paul is dead.
McCartney dead.
Paul died and was Paul McCartney died and was replaced by the winner of a Paul McCartney look-alike contest. Eric, out of 10, where do you think Charles will rate the likelihood?
10 is absolute faith.
So you believe that Charles believes that is 100% true.
I'm gonna say 7.
7 out of 10 in likelihood. Not necessarily believe it, but like it's possible. Charles, where would you rate it?
1 is the least.
1 is the least.
0.
How do you know?
Because I know McCartney.
Yeah,
I've met him through the years.
Or you met a lookalike.
exactly.
Well, okay.
Did you ever meet the original McCartney?
So let's hang on. The first time I met him was in England, and I was introduced to him by a promoter who was very not known. His name is Sam Leach, and he promoted the Beatles' earliest shows, pre-Cavern Club. I mean, a place called the Tower Ballroom, Aldershot, places that, unless you were a really Beatle fanatic freak, you would not have even heard of. This was Pete Best years, even before Ringo. And our relationship was such that Sam was writing a book, and he said, Charles, if you ever bring me to America as your guest at a convention, I'll introduce you to McCartney. And I'm like, sure you will. Just like Nick is going to do a... I didn't believe it. I did not believe it until McCartney decides after 15 whatever years to finally tour again, plays the NEC in Birmingham, England. And we're back. Here I am backstage with Sam Leach, his daughter Samantha, and me. And McCartney walks in. And McCartney does a beeline to Sam and hugs him and says, Sammy, you remember this, that. Now, no matter how well trained, how the FBI and the CIA and the KGB and the Ukraine government, everyone would have drilled this McCartney look-alike and sound-alike and talent-like. There's no way that he would have walked into the room, found this guy, unless he was in on the same conspiracy, and had that that encounter. So I'm going to say 0. Fair
enough. I think that is a pretty valid, pretty thorough explanation. But
the clues and the ridiculous coincidences, holy cow, those are a 10 because those are amazing.
All right, now we got round 2, and this one's semi-related and less popular, but I think it's pretty up there. Eric, what do you think Charles thinks is the likelihood that all of the Beatles, except Paul McCartney, have died and been replaced by lookalikes?
But, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. This one's got to be an 11. If Paul is real, the rest have to be fake.
Well, I'm tempted to agree just to, not to be fun. But no, there's no chance anyone would have bothered to make another Ringo.
What have you?
Okay. Last one. Eric, man, you can't win. You lost 2 out of 3. But
the third one's worth 3 points.
Oh, you're right. Oh, I'm checking the rules right now. You're right. You got it. All right. The Beatles. There's a conspiracy theater floating around, just not understanding how the Beatles ever could have gotten that popular. They were CIA plants to dethrone Elvis as the king of rock and roll.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
For me, I'm like a 10 on that one. Charles, I feel like, despite his years of study and scholarship on the Beatles, has managed to not really get fully well versed in the conspiracy culture. I'm going to say 4.
So, guys, have you said that the stars all aligned in such a weird way that aliens gave these 4 guys the power to change the world at the time? And, well, it could have been for, famine. It could have been for a lot of different things. But as it turned out, they had a little, musical talent and personality. And these aliens weren't able to manifest their powers to give the Beatles different powers. So their powers was to be the greatest musical band of all time and the greatest writers and performers. Maybe I would have believed that because you know what? The fact that these four guys came together and were just so perfect for each other and in such a short time created, the soundtrack to so many people's lives and are still influencing and are still the most underrated band of all time. Just
you think the Beatles are underrated?
Could be rated
I love it.
more.
So underrated. And I'll go through 15 songs right off the bat that will prove that. But anyway, so it's a 0 for me.
Wow, Eric, that's 3 for 3, unfortunately, bud.
I'm sorry that you're that wrong, Charles.
Well, then let me give you guys a conspiracy theory that you may not have ever heard of.
Ooh,
Please do.
Wonderful.
The Beatles are split up. They're gone. They're recording on their own. They're doing their own solo albums. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, this really psychedelic, groovy band called Klaatu, Klaatu, comes out with this unbelievably spacey, experimental, amazing album that these radio stations are like, wait, like the Paul McCartney theory, is this the Beatles? Could this possibly be the Beatles? Recording under another name to see the Four Seasons once recorded as the Wonder Who, to see if they could have a hit if people didn't know it was the Four Seasons.
Interesting.
The Bee Gees recorded the Marbles and the Walls Fell Down. So could the Beatles have been Klaatu? On the cover of Ringo's Goodnight Vienna album, the robot from Klaatu is with him and all that. So is that a possibility with one being No Way? And is that it? One being No Way and 10 being, of course, it's correct.
Right. Yes. It's, I will say that is the most plausible one of the.
Let me ask you this. I'm doing a little quick Google foo here. It looks like there's photos of Klaatu performing live.
Well, you just freaking ruined the
Eric, you're disqualified.
Are you allowed to Google when you're on a game show?
Yeah, of course.
Eric, you violated all of the rules. You're actually banned as host from the show now. And Charles actually ascends into, it's now Brian and Charles don't belong here. Sorry, bud.
Damn it. Every time.
You know my book, the book of top 10 horror lists?
Of course.
Well, yes. I am halfway done with the book of top 10 Beatles lists.
Amazing.
Are you really?
And we're shooting for a 2023 release where 100 celebrities give me their top 10 favorite. We got Dick Cavett. We get a lot of really cool people gave us their top 10 lists. Many who played with the Beatles, recorded with the Beatles, toured with the Beatles. And I was able to find the drummer and songwriter from Klaatu.
Oh, wow.
Terry Draper, who gave me a kick-ass list for the book. And in doing that, without having done the cheating research of whether Klaatu existed and ever toured, I was able to find him, and he proved that it was not the Beatles.
I think I'm gonna listen to some Klaatu tonight.
I think you just turned Eric and I into Klaatu fans.
Yeah, we're big Klaatu guys now. Their number one hit from 1973 is "Heinous of Your Anus," so I think that's where I'm gonna start.
How could you go wrong with
that?
Any anus song?
Yeah, sure.
Charles, do you think there's something about the Beatles that lends themselves to these like conspiracy theories that pop up?
It's not just the Beatles. I mean,
sure.
Elvis is still alive, right? And he's in the movie Bubba Hotep.
Great movie.
Fred, he's still alive. Yeah, Joe Lansdale's a genius. And Michael Jackson, he bleached his skin. He didn't bleach his skin. He had pigmentation issues. There's right. So many when you're of that level that you get all these conspiracy, but no one ever or no entity group ever had as much of those conspiracy things as the Beatles. Yeah, I guess it's all relative. If you're the biggest of something, you'll get the most of that,
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. So Paraconn, it's coming up. It is July 16th and 17th. That's correct?
It is. Are you going to be there, by the way?
Oh, we'll be there.
Are you going to be at a vendor's table, or what are you?
We're going to be at a table, and I believe we have a very special podcast experience Sunday at 1 p.m.
Wow, we're so curious to see what that's going to be like because my expectations are through the roof. I put you on like first thing for the fans because I expect this to be so entertaining and so fun and so educational.
I hope so. We're bringing along the wonderful Tess Feifel. She's a producer for Astonishing Legends. We did realize we probably shouldn't bring along somebody from a better podcast than ours while promoting ours, but we know that for next time now. Bring someone from a worse podcast next time. But Charles, real fast, give the overview, the pitch, why should people come from all over the area to Paraconn?
Well, we did Paraconn last year for the first time. We expected a few hundred people. Nick said, watch, we're going to get 500. And we got 1,500. We sold out. It was capacity. It was just unbelievable. 60 vendors, great guests. And we said, if we repeat that formula and we bring on more guests, 80 vendors instead of 60, that it's going to be even more special. And the people who went will have a great time, and they'll bring more fans with us, and more people will find out about it. And it's July 16th and 17th, which is Saturday and Sunday. It's at the Armory in Ansonia, Connecticut, which is not far from anywhere on the Northeast. It's a drive from New York, it's a drive from New Jersey, a drive from New England. It's worth coming to because it's my personality. It's not just a paranormal event. It's going to be fun. It's going to have every possible element of what you would expect at a Paraconn. And the hours are 11 to 6 each day with a 10 a.m. early bird admission for the VIPs. And on Saturday night, we have an after party event, which it's close to sold out. By the time this airs, it might be sold out, but we've limited it to 100 tickets. And it's the amazing Kreskin doing his presentation for about 15-20 minutes. And then John Zaffis doing his whole paranormal demonology shtick for the rest of the show. And that's, again, limited to 100 tickets, and tickets are on sale by clicking through the paraconn.org website. And that's got all the information. If they click on the Saturday link, it'll have Saturday regular admission, Saturday VIP, Saturday night after party, regular and VIP. And then if they want to stay over, of course, we hope, people who can't come on Saturday will come on Sunday. And that's on the 17th. All the guests that are appearing on stage on the Saturday are different than the guests who are appearing on Sunday. So for the full experience, if you want to hear everybody's presentation, and if someone wants to see you guys, they have to come on Saturday. If they want to see whoever else, they would have to come on Sunday. The only person who's on both days, of course, is Charles Rosenay.
I hear that guy's all right. I don't know, though.
Books to push, so he will be on stage both days, flogging the F out of his books. It's so cool because if someone does get the book there and they're into autographs, I mean, they're going to be able to literally walk around that room, and probably 20 or 25 of the contributors to the book are going to be in one spot, and they can get autographs in the book from everyone who contributed to it. So that's kind of special.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, that's July 16th and 17th, Paraconn, Con like Connecticut, CONN. It's paraconn.org.
Yes.
For tickets. We're going to be there. We're there both days. We're tabling on Saturday. We'll be live on Sunday. We're so excited. We're so excited to meet you in person.
Same here. I can't tell on one of the faces, but I'm hoping we're excited.
Eric, you're excited.
I'm super excited.
Eric's Googling other Klaatu lyrics that have dirty words.
That's right.
It's Klaatu, not Clit 2, okay?
Thank you, Charles, for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Charles Rosenay, thank you so much for joining us again. Pick up his book, come to Paraconn. It's going to be a really good time. Thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. And visit www.paranormal Connecticut, because that's where you'll be able to get the Ghost Stories book. www.paranormalconnecticut.com.
Paranormalconnecticut.com. Wonderful. Eric, you ready to get out of here?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Let's go. Man, Charles rules. It's Brian again, just doing some cleanup. If you're in Connecticut, you better make it out to Paraconn. You can get more information at Paraconn. That's con with 2 N's, like the state of Connecticut, .org. Paraconn.org. If you like the show, maybe leave us a review on iTunes or a comment on YouTube. We read everything and we definitely appreciate it. We're on Twitter at Brian and Eric Pod, and you can also email us at spookybriananderic@gmail.com. For both of us here at Brian and Eric Don't Belong Here, thank you for listening. Stay safe out there.